often rainy island on the edge of Europe, emerged one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. The British Empire, at its height, it ruled over a quarter of the Earth's land and population. But how did this tiny island nation come to dominate continents, seas, and cultures across the globe? The story begins in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, a time of great exploration and discovery. England, as it was then known, was a relatively small kingdom recovering from internal strife. Yet the winds of change were blowing. Inspired by the voyages of Spanish and Portuguese explorers, English adventurers and merchants sought new routes and riches overseas. The English crown, initially cautious, soon recognized the potential of overseas expansion. The establishment of trading companies, like the East India Company in 1600, marked the beginning of England's global ambitions. The East India Company was more than a trading enterprise. It was a powerful force that combined commerce, diplomacy, and military might. Starting with a few trading posts in India, it gradually expanded its influence through alliances, wars, and treaties. By the 18th century, the company controlled vast territories in India, shaping the subcontinent's future for nearly 2 centuries. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, a significant and transformative period of expansion was underway as British settlers began to establish a permanent presence in the Americas. This ambitious endeavor, driven by a complex mix of economic aspirations, religious convictions, and political rivalries, would fundamentally reshape the global landscape. The year 1607 marked a pivotal moment with the founding of Jamestown, an undertaking that, despite initial hardships and immense struggles for survival, ultimately became the first permanent English settlement in the New World. The early years in Jamestown were fraught with peril. Settlers faced unfamiliar diseases, hostile indigenous populations, and the harsh realities of a new environment. Starvation was a constant threat, and the mortality rate was alarmingly high. However, the discovery and cultivation of tobacco as a cash crop provided the nascent colony with an economic lifeline. The insatiable European demand for tobacco fueled the colony's growth and, in turn, spurred further waves of immigration. As the 17th century progressed, more British colonies began to dot the North American coastline and expand into the Caribbean. Each colony often possessed its own unique character and motivations for settlement. Plymouth, founded in 1620 by separatist pilgrims, was driven by a desire for religious freedom and the establishment of a society based on their spiritual principles. Massachusetts Bay, established a decade later, attracted a larger Puritan migration, seeking to create a city upon a hill, a model society for the world. To the south, colonies like Maryland offered refuge for Catholics, while Pennsylvania, founded by William Penn, became a haven for Quakers and a beacon of religious tolerance. In the Caribbean, islands like Barbados and Jamaica became crucial centers for the production of sugar, a commodity that, like tobacco, generated immense wealth for the British Empire. The cultivation of sugar was incredibly labor-intensive, leading to the tragic and brutal expansion of the transatlantic slave trade, forever scarring the history of these colonies and the wider Atlantic world. Over time, these diverse colonies, stretching from the temperate climes of New England to the tropical islands of the Caribbean, grew in size and importance. They transformed from precarious outposts into vital sources of raw materials timber, furs, agricultural products, and minerals feeding the burgeoning industries of Great Britain. They also became significant markets for British manufactured goods, creating a dynamic mercantile system that enriched the mother country. This symbiotic relationship, however, would eventually become a source of tension as the colonies developed their own distinct identities and aspirations, setting the stage for future conflicts and the eventual pursuit of independence. The establishment and growth of these British colonies were not merely a geographical expansion, they represented a profound shift in global power dynamics, laying the groundwork for a vast empire and forever altering the course of human history. In the Southern Hemisphere, the British established penal colonies in Australia, turning a remote land into a strategic outpost. In Africa, the British sought control of key ports and resources, competing fiercely with other European powers. A pivotal moment came in 1757 at the Battle of Plassey, where British forces under Robert Clive defeated the Nawab of Bengal. This victory secured British dominance in India and marked the beginning of the British Raj, the direct rule of India by the British Crown. India became the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, a land rich in resources, culture, and strategic importance. The empire's wealth flowed from Indian cotton, tea, spices, and opium, fueling Britain's industrial revolution and global power. Back home, the Industrial Revolution transformed Britain into the world's first industrial superpower. Factories churned out textiles, steel, and machinery. Railways and steamships revolutionized transport, shrinking the world and enabling the empire to manage its vast territories more efficiently. The British Navy, the most powerful in the world, protected trade routes and enforced British interests from the Caribbean to the South China Sea. Control of the seas was crucial, the empire's lifeline. The 19th century was the age of Victorian Britain, a period of confidence, expansion, and cultural pride. Queen Victoria became the symbolic figurehead of an empire on which the sun never set. Britain's influence extended beyond politics and economics. British law, language, education, and customs spread across continents, leaving a lasting legacy that still shapes the modern world. At its zenith, the British Empire covered over 13 million square miles, roughly a quarter of the Earth's land area, and governed over 400 million people, nearly a quarter of the world's population at the time. From the icy wastes of Canada to the tropical islands of the Pacific, from the deserts of Africa to the bustling cities of India, British rule was a global phenomenon. The empire built vast infrastructure projects, railways that connected remote regions, telegraph lines that enabled instant communication across continents, and ports that facilitated global trade. These developments modernized many colonies, but also served British economic and strategic interests. Yet, British rule was not without controversy. Colonial policies often suppressed local cultures, economies, and political freedoms. Resistance and rebellion were common, from the Indian Rebellion of 1857 to the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya. The two world wars tested the empire's strength and unity. Soldiers from India, Africa, the Caribbean, and Australia fought alongside British troops, demonstrating the empire's global reach and diversity. From a tiny island, Britain built a world-spanning empire that shaped the modern era. The story of how a small nation ruled a quarter of the world is a tale of ambition, innovation, and the enduring impact of history.